Now, before you came back to WCW to book and stuff like that, I guess Vince wanted to give everybody contracts, was it? And that you were the only guy who didn't want to sign the contract to stay there? Is that why you left? No?
It's not even close to true.
Okay.
See, Vince McMahon and I had a really good relationship. Russo, here I go again, not my fault, but I had a personality conflict with management in WCW and quit. I called Vince McMahon and he said, please come in.
Right.
That day. So on January 8th, I quit WCW and started for the WWF 5 minutes later. And Vince McMahon, who owns the company, didn't tell Ed Ferrara or Vince Russo that I was part of the writing team. I just showed up the next day, and Russo went, hey, we were beating the pants off WCW. We've got a great product. We got a good chemistry. If it ain't broke, why is he here?
What year is this?
99.
Okay.
That's the year I was up in the WWF. And Vince Russo, I think he was right. I mean, I had wrestling knowledge. I understood the psychology of why you can do certain things and why you can't in the context of a wrestling product that Vince Russo didn't understand. And that's why Vince McMahon brought me in. But Vince McMahon didn't tell Russo that I was coming. And that was another one of those little situations that we had to work through. And we did. And I had fun up there. I had a great run. It's, there was other things to do, and Vince Russo wanted new talent. So, I'm responsible for Lita being up there, Trish Stratus, Kay Quick. So I hired a bunch of people that have actually moved into the system and did well, for the 3 months I was doing it. And Vince, the deal was because Russo and Ed left, and we had no writing team, Vince McMahon or Linda and Vince asked everybody to sign a loyalty pledge saying that they wouldn't leave for a year. Or if they left, they wouldn't work for WCW for a year, which I can't blame them. And they asked me I didn't know about it. And then I'd gone to TV Tuesday and was working Wednesday and Thursday in Connecticut. And I usually flew back to Atlanta because my dad was sick. And Vince said I could stay in Atlanta as long as my dad was sick because I would fly back and forth. And Thursday afternoon, I got ready to leave, and Jim Ross comes walking in. I got along with Jim. I mean, he was good to me. He just said, Worden, which is what he called me. That's my middle name. He goes, Worden, you didn't sign your loyalty pledge. I said, well, may I talk to you? And we went into his office, and I just said, I don't have a contract here. I work here because you guys want me to and because I want to. If I sign this, I have no leverage. You guys could let me go, and I don't know how to do anything else. So me saying that, I'm not saying I won't sign it, Jim. What I'm asking is to talk to Vince to see if he feels like, what we should do as far as offering me a contract or something that if I'm going to give away a year of my life, I know I can work here this long or something. And he said, fine. So the next week I went to go talk to Vince, and a whole lot of things happened, and some people got in his ear and misled Vince, who was staying up all night trying to get the IPO going to sell, the public thing of the WWF. And he was tired, and the guys who didn't like me up there, and I'm not a perfect person. I know I do things wrong. I know that. But, I've never intentionally hurt anybody or tried to, get him fired. Some people up there have gotten Vince's ear and just said, he did this, he did that, he did that. And I went in there to ask Vince to be the head writer and to, get a raise, and that I was going to move my family up there. And he said, sorry, it didn't work out. And he thought I was going to quit. He thought the reason I was coming in, he was told that I was going to tell him to go stick it. That wasn't it. I wanted to be the head writer. I wanted to stay. But he was tired, and his timing's everything.
Right.
And I'm not saying I was blameless. I mean, I did some things wrong up there, and I didn't understand their system, and I probably should have spent the first month I was up there just watching, so I didn't step on people's toes. But I fit in, and I think the talent liked me up there, and I know Vince and Linda did. There were some other people whose toes I stepped on, and I would apologize to them because I did it out of inspiration, not being an idiot or being an asshole. I just did it because I was trying so hard to make Vince glad he hired me, and I just stepped on people's toes. So when Vince fired me, he's the kind of guy who can't, when he's jumped off the cliff, he can't jump back up. And then we talked for like 45 minutes, and I just laughed. He goes, what are you laughing at? I said, I love life. And he goes, you love life? I said, I come in here to get, knee deep in the blood and guts of writing your television to dedicate my life to you and this business and the WWF, and you let me go. I said, you can't pick stuff like that. It just happens. And he and I talked for about an hour, and I shook his hand and said, thanks for everything. And he said he would have paid me until I get another job. And I had a great job, salary, and I said, what if it takes 10 years? He says, I will pay you for 10 years if that's what it takes.
Wow.
He's an awesome person. I hear somebody say something bad about Vince McMahon, I want to kick him.
What are your thoughts on The Rock as far as success when you were there? Oh.
He was just getting there when I was there. Austin was the number one guy, and Russo and Ed and Vince McMahon really worked hard at the television booking things to make sure that Austin's character was defined and in the right direction and all that. And they were starting to do that with The Rock. But by the time momentum had kicked in, The Rock was just awesome. And Mick Foley is a big reason for that. Mick Foley got The Rock over.
Now, when Russo left, what was the atmosphere like for WCW?
Wait a minute. I was in the WWF when he left.
Right. No, that's what I'm talking about now. When he left, that's what I was asking you.
When he went to WCW, the WWF, everybody was like,
right,
couldn't believe it. Like, oh God, he and Ed had written the 2 shows and left them. But we were looking at it going, oh God, we don't know what half this means. And it's not that it was, like hieroglyphics.
Right.
It was just like, somebody writes a story, they can explain certain twists and turns because they know what's coming and we don't. And, we pulled together, and Vince McMahon, rolled up his sleeves and just started, we'll do this here and we'll fix that. And he never took a back step. Vince McMahon just said, you know what? This is what we've been dealt. Well, let's get to work. And he did.
Now, to jump ahead a little bit, when you went back to WCW, how was the door open for you?
Bill Bush, Vince Russo, Ed, and JJ, and Gary Juster. When Vince and I had the talk, Vince said, you need to explore your options with WCW. So I did. I called, and they said, if you want to come back, we just got to check out a couple things, which part of my background and my record there to make sure everything was okay. But by then, Vince McMahon had said, please come back. And he said, you can be a talent scout. He says, I'll pay you the same salary. You can do whatever you want. He says, we will gloss over these people that are upset with you and we'll work it out. And Linda said, whatever. God, they were so good. And it just makes me sick when I hear people saying, no, the guy's a businessman. It's his money. It's his product. And if anybody works harder, the day after he takes the bump with Austin and breaks his back, I saw him in the chair that morning. We're at 8 a.m. We're writing TV, and he sits straight up and he's writing. We had to physically pick Vince up and help him to the bathroom so he could get changed to go to work. The minute he walked in that building where this talent that he works with and for and is their leader, he walked in there, he had his head held up, didn't limp, didn't sell a second. Walked around until he saw him when he sat down. When he sat down, he went, hello, everyone. Welcome. How can you not dedicate your life to somebody like that? God, the guy was dying inside. Didn't go, he's the best. I hated it. Linda and I cried. When I left, I cried and cried. I felt like a girl. But my dad was sick. My dad had been in a coma for a year. And, wasn't as good a son as I could have been. And I needed to be there for him.
Do you think Bill Bush was over his head at the time when he went back to WCW?
Absolutely. If a person is a great businessman or an accountant or a character builder, that does not mean they're going to understand the rest of the business. It is over.
Did you see a lot of potential in Steve Austin back then?
Yeah, I worked with Steve. I knew what my role was. Same thing with Paige. Steve was a good guy. And I'm not saying I'm not taking. I don't want this to sound like me, because it's not. But we did one time Gene, when the first time Gene ever got his kidney, it was bad and he was sick. We did an uncensored in Tupelo. And they asked me, because I was doing radio or something, if I would do the internet it was internet. But you do a deal where you watch the monitor and the people call in and you talk to them or you describe the action or whatever. I'd never done it. And, Eric said, will you do it? And I said, yeah, I don't know what to do, but I'll screw this up as best I can. Well, we were doing it, and, we had guest people coming by and all that. Steve would work like first or second. And, he was always funny, made me laugh. And he came in and sat down, and everything you hear him do on the WWF shows now, he was doing on the internet thing. And I was like, damn, son, don't make me come stomp a mud hole in you and walk it dry. Hell, and I mean, everything he's doing up there, he did on that thing. I came back 45 minutes later, he was still doing it. Just having a great time, entertaining the people, and he just, he deserved a break. That's one thing about our business. It's not real. You can't say who's the fastest runner, and because you don't know. Running, you just, for whoever gets from here to here first is the fastest. In our business, it's not like that. There's a lot of different qualities.
Watch thousands of exclusive shoot interviews right now on TitleMatchNetwork.com.